Friends, imagine a world where a nation's leader brazenly declares another country a disgraceful blot that must be wiped off the face of the earth. These chilling words, spoken by Iran's former president Ahmadinejad in 2005, reveal the deep-seated hostility that fuels the ongoing conflict between Iran and Israel. Today, in June 2025, we stand at a critical juncture. A ceasefire, announced by US President Donald Trump to end a 12-day war, hangs in the balance, its implementation clouded by uncertainty as missiles continue to fly and conflicting statements emerge from Tehran. As an Indian, I speak to you with a heart heavy with concern, not just for the Middle East, but for our own nation, which knows all too well the scars of terrorism. This video will unravel the roots of this conflict, the fragility of the ceasefire, the dire consequences of its failure. India, a land that has endured the pain of terrorist attacks, understands the stakes. From the Mumbai attacks of 2008 to the countless lives lost to cross-border terrorism, we know the cost of ideologies that breed hate. I believe, as many of you may, that regimes like Iran's, driven by radical interpretations of Islam, pose a threat not only to Israel but to global peace, including our beloved Bharat. Today, I will explore why this ceasefire's success is far from guaranteed and what it means for us all. Let us journey through the history of this conflict, the shaky ground on which this ceasefire rests, and the path forward if Iran chooses war over peace. The roots of the Iran-Israel conflict trace back to Iran's 1979 Islamic Revolution, which transformed it from a nation that recognized Israel into one that denies its right to. Iran's current government calls for Israel's destruction, supporting proxy groups like Hamas in Gaza and Hezbollah in Lebanon, which have waged wars against Israel, including the devastating 2006 Lebanon. These groups, armed and funded by Iran, have carried out attacks that have killed civilians and destabilized the region. For instance, Hamas' October 2023 attack on Israel, which killed hundreds, was backed by Iranian support, as noted by Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah. Israel, viewing Iran's nuclear ambitions as an existential threat, has taken decisive action. Since the 2010 Stuxnet cyber attack, attributed to Israel and the US, Israel has targeted Iran's nuclear facilities to prevent it from acquiring nuclear weapons. The collapse of the 2015 Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action in 2018, after the US withdrawal, heightened tensions, with Israel accusing Iran of violating nuclear agreements. In 2025, the conflict escalated dramatically when Israel launched strikes on 13 June, targeting Iran's nuclear sites, missile factories, and military leadership, killing over 200 people. Iran retaliated with missile barrages on Israeli cities like Tel Aviv, marking the most intense direct confrontation in decades. This escalation, dubbed the 12-day war, has seen unprecedented violence, with the US joining Israel by striking 3 Iranian nuclear sites on 21 June. The conflict's roots lie in ideological differences, with Iran's revolutionary rhetoric clashing with Israel's determination to protect its sovereignty. For India, this conflict resonates deeply, as we face similar threats from ideologies that fuel terrorism, reminding us of our own battles against groups like Lashkar-e-Taiba. On 23 June 2025, President Trump announced a complete and total ceasefire between Iran and Israel, intended to end the 12-day war. The agreement, brokered with Qatar's mediation, outlined a phased approach. Iran would halt attacks at midnight, followed by Israel 12 hours later, with the war officially ending after 24 hours. Trump hailed this as a triumph, stating, "This is a war that could have gone on for years and destroyed the entire Middle East, but it didn't and never will." However, the ceasefire's implementation is far from certain. Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi denied a formal agreement, stating on X that Iran would only pause attacks if Israel stopped its illegal aggression by 4 a.m. Tehran time on 24 June. This deadline passed, yet Israel reported missile launches from Iran, with 3 people critically injured in southern Israel. Iranian state media claimed they imposed a ceasefire through military action, while Israel issued evacuation warnings for Tehran, signaling continued hostilities. The lack of official confirmation from both nations, coupled with ongoing attacks, underscores the ceasefire's fragility. Qatar's role as a mediator, having facilitated talks with Iran, adds complexity, as does Iran's attack on the US Al Udeid air base in Qatar, which caused no casualties but heightened tensions. These developments suggest that neither side is fully committed, raising doubts about the ceasefire's viability. The ceasefire's uncertain implementation stems from deep-seated mistrust, Iran's ideological stance, and ongoing military actions. Iran's revolutionary government has consistently called for Israel's destruction, as evidenced by Ahmadinejad's 2005 statement and Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei's 2025 assertion that Iran will not surrender. This rhetoric, rooted in Iran's post-1979 ideology, fuels support for anti-Israel proxies, making peace agreements suspect. Historically, Iran's adherence to agreements has been questioned. The JCPOA, signed in 2015, aimed to limit Iran's nuclear program, but Israel and the US accused Iran of violations, leading to the US withdrawal in 2018. In 2025, the International Atomic Energy Agency declared Iran in violation of nuclear obligations, prompting Israel's strikes. Iran's denial of a nuclear weapons program, despite Khamenei's claim that no one could stop them if they pursued one, further erodes trust. Current events exacerbate this uncertainty. Iran's missile launches after the ceasefire deadline, coupled with Araghchi's conditional statements, suggest a lack of commitment. Internal pressures within Iran, including hardliners advocating for a nuclear deterrent, may push for continued aggression. Israel's evacuation warnings for Tehran indicate readiness to resume strikes, reflecting a mutual lack of faith. From an Indian perspective, this mirrors our own experiences with broken promises. Agreements with neighboring countries have often been undermined by terrorism, such as the 1999 Lahore Declaration, followed by the Kargil War. Iran's actions, driven by radical ideology, resonate with Araghchi's belief that such regimes cannot be trusted to honor peace agreements, threatening not just Israel but nations like India that value stability. A failed ceasefire could ignite a broader conflict, with devastating consequences. A full-scale war between Iran and Israel risks involving the US, Russia, and regional powers, destabilizing the Middle East. The Strait of Hormuz, vital for global oil supplies, could be disrupted, spiking oil prices and impacting India's energy-dependent economy. The human toll is already severe, with over 950 deaths in Iran and 24 in Israel, and further escalation could lead to mass displacement and civilian suffering. Increased terrorism is another risk. Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah could intensify, threatening not only Israel but also India, which has faced similar threats from Pakistan-backed groups. A destabilized Middle East could embolden terrorist networks, impacting India's security. Economically, India's trade and diaspora in the region, with thousands evacuated from Israel and Iran, face significant risks. For Rakesh, this scenario is a call to vigilance. The failure of the ceasefire could embolden regimes that thrive on chaos, threatening India's vision of a peaceful, prosperous world. The international community must recognize these risks and support efforts to maintain stability. As an Indian, I see Iran's actions as part of a broader pattern of aggression rooted in radical Islamic ideology. India has suffered from terrorism, from the 2008 Mumbai attacks to ongoing threats from Pakistan-backed groups. Iran's support for Hamas and Hezbollah mirrors this, fueling violence that destabilizes regions and threatens nations like ours. The words of Iran's leaders, calling for Israel's destruction, echo the rhetoric we've heard from those who target India's sovereignty. I stand with Israel and the US in their efforts to counter this threat. Israel's strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities and the US's bombing of 3 nuclear sites on 21st June are justified responses to a regime that refuses to honor peace. India, while officially neutral, advocating for dialogue and diplomacy, shares a common interest in combating terrorism. Our government's refusal to join SCO condemnation of Israel's actions reflects this nuanced stance. For me, this conflict is personal. The fear of living under the shadow of terrorism is something every Indian understands. The images of missile strikes in Tel Aviv remind me of the chaos in Mumbai, where innocent lives were lost to ideologies of hate. We must support nations that stand against such threats, ensuring that regimes like Iran's are held accountable. If Iran dishonors the ceasefire, the US and Israel are likely to respond with decisive measures. The US, having struck Iranian nuclear sites, may escalate military actions targeting additional facilities or leadership. Israel could intensify its strikes, as seen in its attacks on Tehran and even prison. Both nations may impose stricter sanctions, isolating Iran economically, or support opposition groups to destabilize the regime. Diplomatically, they could rally international support to condemn Iran, as suggested by past US actions against Iran's nuclear program. These actions are crucial to deter further aggression and protect global stability. For India, a strong response ensures that ideologies of hate do not gain ground, safeguarding our own security. In conclusion, the Iran-Israel ceasefire, announced with hope, teeters on the edge of failure. The historical animosity, Iran's ideological stance, and ongoing attacks cast doubt on its success. The consequences of failure, a wider war, economic turmoil, and increased terrorism, threaten not just the Middle East but nations like India, which know the cost of such instability. As an Indian, I urge the international community to stand against regimes that fuel hate and support those, like Israel and the US, who defend peace. If Iran dishonors this ceasefire, the US and Israel will likely resume military strikes, impose crippling sanctions, and isolate Iran diplomatically to ensure regional stability. Let us pray for peace but prepare for action, standing united against the forces of chaos. Bharat's strength lies in its resolve. Let us support a world where justice prevails. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to this channel.